Hi friends, welcome to Be a Patriotic. Today we'll discuss on the topic which is on heat from last couple of weeks. Attack on Indian Army and the retaliation. I would like to invite my friend, a long-time friend, Mr. Raghu, who is very much aware of all this topic, current affairs and things happening in and around India. I have shortlisted a few questions on all your behalf. We'll see what Mr. Raghu has to say on all this. Coming to the topic, couple of weeks before, the terrorist has attacked Indian Army and killed four of our army soldiers and one Jammu and Kashmir policeman. So our army has retaliated and killed Mujahideen commander in chief, Riyaz Naikub. But the body is not handed over to his family. We'll see what Mr. Raghu has to say on this.
Yeah, thanks, Alma. Thanks, first of all, thanks for giving me this wonderful opportunity to express my views and opinions on this topic. This is a very good topic that we need to discuss, and we also need to feel responsible to let everyone know and make them aware about what's going on and what is right and what is wrong. So, thanks once again for having me in this discussion. So, coming to your question, as you asked that. Um, Recently, there was an unfortunate incident that happened, and a few of our soldiers, including a JNK policeman, has been killed. And we, first of all, we should salute and pay our respect to them and their families. And yeah, whatever they are doing for our country is priceless, and their duty should always and they should always be honored. Um, So your question you asked about the terrorist who got killed, Riaz Naiku, and when he got killed, his body was not given to his family. So let me tell you, this is the first time it's happening like this. Um, Before, in the past, you must be knowing that there have been a lot of attacks, and our army has retaliated, and we neutralized a lot of terrorists as well. Um, the best example that I can give is in the same Hizbul Mujahideen organization, terrorist organization. There was a commander before Riaz Naiku. There was couple of commanders, and they both got killed by Indian Army. If you remember what happened with Burhan Wani, he was also a youngster from Kashmir Valley who decided to take gun and protest and become a terrorist and oppress the Indian army. So what happened? Indian army retaliated like always, and it killed Burhan Wani. And after killing, the body was sent to his family. So what happened was suddenly there were a couple of interviews. Most of the people might be knowing it, but if you don't know, there is still those interviews in YouTube. You can go and search in YouTube. Before Burhan Wani was killed, before he went and joined the Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist organization, one of our country's famous journalist. I won't take the names, but one of our country's famous journalist was interviewing his father before this incident happened, way back before this incident happened. To when we found out that this young kid from this family went and joined the terrorist organization, they interviewed and they asked this question to his father. Why do you think that your son has joined this organization, terrorist organization? And what happens if he, God forbids, if he gets killed? How do you see it? This question was asked to his family, his father, and his father replied, he joined this organization to fight for the freedom of Kashmir. And when he was asked that what happens if he gets killed, he said that the day when he joined this organization, I have left his life to Allah. So which means that their family was already aware about all these things. They were aware about that their son was going and joining the organization. So it is not by coincidence. It is not like a sudden thing that he has joined today and he got killed tomorrow. It is not like that. So he has joined a long back, and our army was in search of him for long time. And finally he got killed. And when his body reached to his family, suddenly the narrative changed. The narrative changed as if the Indian army has done something wrong. He was an innocent youngster from a Kashmir valley. He had to take the gun because he wanted to fight for the freedom of the Kashmir valley and all the Kashmiris. So he was looked like he was doing something good for the society. He was a freedom fighter. So this kind of image happened. This kind of image got created in his village and in surrounding villages in Kashmir valley, and he was treated like he's a hero of their village. He was a freedom fighter who laid his life for us, for Kashmiris. And this Rambo image of him, this cult image of him was trending, and all the youngsters were treating him as a freedom fighter, and they were idolizing him as a hero, and they were like condoling their families that it was unfortunate that Indian army they did a criminal act, and they have been doing the criminal acts against us. So all the people were very merciful, and soon all the youngsters were also motivated, obviously, to join this terrorist organization against India and Indian defense forces. So in order to stop this glorification and in order to prevent more youngsters to take the gun, leave the education, take the gun, and go and join all the terrorist organizations and do violent attacks anywhere in India or anywhere across both the borders, doing a violence attacks is always against the society, against the peaceful, against the peace nature of this society. So in order to prevent this, in order to stop glorifying these terrorists as heroes or as martyrs, Indian government has put it clear. They have released this policy, put it clear across that during the operation, if any terrorist gets killed, his body will not be handed over to his family or anyone. So this is a new step that is being taken by the government.
Thanks, Raghu. So, on this topic, I have one more question related to it. So, many people say that Riaz Naikov is a maths teacher. So, and maths teacher, and he's getting killed for no reason, or many people are getting killed for no reason by Indian Army and the other things. So, what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, this question was asked not for the first time. This question was raised. I mean, this
many times before.
Yeah, many times even before when Burhan Wani got killed, they were trying to, glorify them, and also they were trying to show a lot of sympathy, and they were kind of empathetic to what he was and why our army and government were decided to kill him, all these things. And same thing repeated now, saying that Riaz Naikov was a maths teacher and it is unfair to kill a maths teacher. So I see, like, who are these people who are asking this question? They are the same set of people who asked the question previously and even now. And these people are not the common citizens. These people are actually representing few parties. We need to understand that first. Which parties are it? These parties are actually all the opposition parties, leftist and all its allied parties, and the people might be some politicians or directly related to these parties, or the people who support these parties, who are left-wing parties, who are so-called secular intellectuals of our country. So these people were asking at that time, and even now they ask the same question. But why they ask? They don't have the logic. They only say that. So for them, they see this guy as a math genius or a math teacher, even though he carries a gun, even though he carries all the arms and ammunitions with him, a suicide jacket and all, even though he motivates all the youngsters in the Kashmir Valley, even though he joins the Hizbul Mujahideen organization, but for these people who are putting these comments and who are talking about him being a math teacher and all, for these people he's not doing any violence. Let him carry the guns, let him join whatever organization he can, let him motivate and inspire other people to join these organizations, but end of the day he's a math teacher. Why did you kill him? So this logic itself is a nonsense logic. People need to understand that. And why these people are questioning the government and armed forces is for a simple reason. They are in opposition. They can question whatever they can. They do not mean any logic. Even if it is logically wrong or right, it doesn't really matter to them. They don't give a damn. They just question because they are sitting in the opposition and they want the government to respond to their questions. And sometimes government should not respond to these questions. Government responds because of they build these high amount of pressure and they keep on asking these questions in debates and in news channels and in every platform. Sometimes the government comes under the pressure and they try to answer it, but sometimes it's hard for us to say that government should not answer these questions, they should just ignore because these are logically incorrect questions. But it government holds the responsibility to answer the questions even if they are illogical and doesn't make any sense. So bottom line of the question is basically the questions are illogical. They only see one side of the coin. They don't see the other side of the coin. They don't see whether this guy has actually joined the terrorist organization and he has decided to do the jihad against the Indian government, Indian armed forces. They don't see all those things. So they only see that he is a math teacher and he should not be killed, which is not a logical question in my sense. So we should ignore these people. We should not really follow these people. And for a common citizen, for common people like you and me, if we follow these people, we will also be only thinking on the one side. We will not be thinking on both the sides and deciding whether the government and the armed forces has done correctly or wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that clarifying my question, Raghu. So the next question I would like to ask you is, can the problem be solved by killing these terrorists?
Very good question. No, the simple answer for this question is no. The problem will never be solved if we keep killing the terrorists. Why? I will tell you. This problem is not a recent has not been happening recently. This is not a new problem or freshly happening now. This problem has been happening since decades. Ever since we got the independence, Kashmir Valley was always a center point or a soft target for all the people who wanted to target or who wanted to do the politics against our country, against our government and whoever it is. So this is not a new problem, but let me take back you to the past. What happened? In the past, we killed a lot of terrorists. We had a lot of terrorist attacks, and the terrorism was still not solved. Even now, we are doing the same thing. We are not doing anything new. We are trying to neutralize all these terrorist terrorists who are attacking not only our army, even our civilians are being killed. Some people say that civilians are not being killed, it's only army because the army is there in the Kashmir Valley. They shouldn't be there in the Kashmir Valley. I would say that you can go in the past and you can find out the news and all other sources that even civilians were also killed. If you see the Riaz Naiku story, he has actually killed a lot of teachers and children and lot of innocent villagers in Kashmir Valley. So even civilians are being targeted. They just want to create a violence. So killing these terrorists will not solve the problem. It would be only a temporary fix for some time, and again a new leader will be born, because these leaders are normal people. They will be religiously or politically motivated or driven by the terrorists across the border who are actual root causes of these problems. So obviously, if one is down, they will find a new leader in no time. And while we are talking now, they have already appointed a new leader. The
Yeah.
Hizbul Mujahideen commander, there's a new leader. So the leaders will keep coming. The supply is on and on since decades. So killing these people will not solve the issue. It will not bring the peace in the Valley of Kashmir. We have to find, for any problem, we have to find the root cause. If it is happening again and again, we have to stop and find the root cause. It is not a coincidence. It has been happening again and again. So it is some conspiracy. It is something going on behind the scenes that is actually motivating these people and creating these terrorists. So Indian government, if they think that killing these commanders and terrorists will solve the issue, the answer is no. I'm sure they also know about this, but to answer your question, the answer is no. We have to find the root causes, and the root causes are nothing but the heads of these so-called terrorist organizations who are not in the Kashmir Valley, who are sitting across the border in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, who are in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, all these big cities. They are lavish, they are having a lavish life, they're enjoying their luxury life, they're just collecting the funds from different sources. There have been a lot of facts around that. These funds also come from some sources in India, some sources abroad, some from Gulf countries and all. So they have the money, and their job is already assigned by these sources. Their job is to just send these terrorists into the Indian border and let them die. They don't really care. Okay, so basically, our government needs to, we still need to neutralize these terrorists. We still need to stop them doing what they want to do. If needed, we need to kill them. But this will not solve the issue. The issue is across the border. Until we solve the root cause, until we put pressure on Pakistani government, until we keep doing surgical strikes that we did ever since Uri attack has happened, Balakot has happened, and we did the airstrike. Until we keep doing it, this issue will not be solved. And all this, the surgical strike happened when Uri incident has happened. Balakot airstrike has happened. Why did we do it? These were not offensive. These were defensive offense reactions.
Yeah, taken by Indian government. Yeah.
So we didn't actually initiate these attacks. We were giving them a response. So how long shall we give a response? We have been giving responses earlier. In earlier governments, we were giving a response in a non-violent way. How? We were used to send the documents, proofs, dossiers to the government, to the Pakistani government, and whoever was asking, we used to compile them and put all the proofs and evidences, and used to send a complete documentation and dossier to these governments so that they can do that, take the action. Have they taken the action since last 30-40 years? Have they taken any action?
No use. No.
So sending these big documents and dossiers is of no use. So this government, when it came to power, they also did the same thing. Before Uri, there were
initially.
If you see, I can remember Pathankot before Uri. Patankot happened. There was a village called Gurdaspur near Punjab border, Pakistan and Indian Punjab border. So terrorist attacks have happened, and our government also sent these documents and evidences and proofs, whatever they have. Nothing happened. There was no action taken by Pakistan. So after that, after these failures, government has decided that enough is enough. We will not send any documents. We are done sending the documents. There is no use. If there was use, then we will be sending the documents. How many documents you have in your courtyard? You didn't even take any action. All the documents were written saying that these are not
false allegations or
yeah, these are false allegations. These are not real facts. They were sent back to the government. But our soldiers were being killed. Our civilians were being targeted. So what is the solution? The government, when BJP came into the power, I mean, when government decided to stop this and perform a violent way of giving a response, we started doing the surgical strikes and air strikes. But even these strikes were in response to what happened. We were always defensive. Even today we are in defensive mode. We are not offensive. So the real problem lies there. Until and unless we are offensive, the problem will never be solved. Why? Because if we are always offensive, the enemy always knows that we are always offensive. These people will not do anything until we provoke, or we start. They will keep doing it. They will keep provoking you. They will keep send the infiltrators and the terrorists and keep attacking, because they don't really care about, if they die or not. They don't really care, because they themselves are saying, their family themselves are ready to give their kids' lives to Allah in the name of God. So why would they care? They don't even care a bit. So our government should be strictly changing its policy from defensive offense to offense, complete offense. At the borders, not inside the borders. At the borders, we don't have to be offensive in the Kashmir Valley, in our Kashmir state, because obviously something is coming across the border, not inside. So if we are offensive, and if we seal the borders, and if we change our policy to offensive, no offensive defense, no defensive offense, complete offensive, then there will be nothing coming inside the border. No infiltration will be happening. Obviously it is a very tough task. We are speaking as if we know everything, but obviously the government, the armed forces, everyone knows about it, what they need to do. But this discussion that we are doing is for common citizen who do not know much, who just follow one side of the coin. So until we do change, until we should also support the government. After knowing all these things, whatever they're doing it right. They have to seal the border and go all guns blazing, defensive mode, offensive mode. Until we don't do that, Pakistan will never going to listen to our documents or dossiers or all these big files and evidences that they just play them, and they sit back and enjoy as if they are watching a good movie or a web series. Yeah.
Okay. So one more question I would like to ask is, how do these become terrorists, or how do these get arms and ammunition, and where do they get from? What is the source? What can be the source according to you?
Yeah, as I said that um, if they are maths teachers, or if they are good students, or if they are working in nice companies and all, then how come are they getting all these arms and ammunitions? Are they putting all their salaries to buy all these arms and ammunitions? They
I
will
think
not.
they're having some a special privilege to get all these arms and ammunition.
Exactly. So if they can buy, okay. So people say that no, they are not coming across the border. They are buying somewhere here. I'm like, If they are able to buy, then every citizen of the country can also be able to buy, right? Even we can also go and buy it in the store, but we don't find the stores. We don't have the license to buy. For us, it's a different rule. For them, it's a different
We
rule.
don't have
It
a
cannot
need.
happen. And we don't even have a need. Like even for the fun purpose, even if you want to buy, just let's say that if I want to buy a AK-47, where would I get in India? In which city will I get AK-47? So it's like it's a it's a baseless and bullshit comment and a logic that people keep saying because they want to put pressure on the government so that someone will answer something which they need. So the answer to your question is, these people, they left their jobs. They are no longer a maths teacher. They have left their profession. They have left their studies, and they have left their families. They have decided one thing: they were religiously motivated. Bad in bad teaching of religion. I'm not against about any religion, be it Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Parsi, Jew, Jain, anything. We are not against about any religion. We are against about on the people who are teaching them wrong religion. That is not the true religion. If that was a true religion, then why are rest of the Muslims or rest of the people in the country or anywhere in the world, why are they not joining these organizations? If that is a true religion, then everyone, we all should leave our jobs. Then what is the purpose of doing the jobs, right? If he is doing the right thing, then yeah, let's leave our jobs and let's also leave our families and let's join the organization. So this itself proves the fact that that is the wrong teaching of the religion. That is not true Islam. They say jihad. Jihad is not that. They haven't even read the Quran. Anyone can read the Quran nowadays. It's not only Muslims can read. Quran is translated in every language that is available in the world. It is available in Hindi, English,
Telugu,
Telugu, Marathi,
Marathi,
every language
Bengali.
that is available in the world. Spanish, French, Russian, you name it, it is available. So they think that they can only read and they can only understand what Quran is. All the so-called terrorist organization leaders, they are actually teaching them wrong Islam. They know it that they are teaching them wrong Islam. But these youngsters, actually they are innocent. Before joining these terrorist organizations, they are actually innocent, just like you and me, the normal civilians. But they are motivated and inspired to a level that they, whatever they hear and from these preachers, they think everything is
Brainwashed.
correct. Yeah, they completely brainwashed to a limit that they cannot come down now. They have already crossed the limit, and at that point of time we cannot call them as innocent civilians because they have already crossed the limit. Now their brain is not on the same standard of a civilian brain. They have crossed the limit, and now they have really religiously provoked and motivated that if you fight for anything and if you give your life, then you 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 will be going into heaven or something. That's what they teach, as simple as that, right? And the bottom line is that. So people need to understand it, that this is not true Islam or any religion. Any religion which supports violence is not a true religion or a true faith or a true belief. It's not only them. Quran can be read by the whole world's population, and most of the non-Muslims have read the Quran multiple times. They have by hearted it. There is nowhere in Quran saying that you have to kill someone to go to heaven. So whatever they are saying is completely wrong and baseless. People need to understand. And even I would say, before believing whatever you see in the media and news televisions, try to just take a look at small snippet of Quran. It is available in internet also. You can download the full copy of Quran. There is no harm. Following any religion is no harm. It's our personal choice. You can follow Sikhism, you can follow Hinduism, you can follow Islam, you can follow any religion. if it is helping you, if it is inspiring you, if it is doing good for yourself, if you are being a good citizen, if you are being a good son or a daughter of your family, if you are being a good patriotic or a citizen of a country, you can follow any religion. We are not against on any religions,
Yes,
so we
of
have to
course.
keep
Instead
this
of
straight.
being an follower of one particular religion, we can read any holy book of other religion too. Like if I'm a
Exactly,
Christian, I can read Quran. If I'm Muslim, I can read Bhagavad Gita, and so
exactly.
on.
So no one is going to stop you. If you read, then you will get more knowledge. That's a reason that you need to read all the books. If you are studying in any college or a school, will you only read only maths book or a science book? You will read all the six subjects, right? It will
This
actually
is
give you more
important.
knowledge. So as simple as that. Even religions, you should I actually say that we should all read all the books to gather information. If I'm Hindu, I should read Bible, Quran, everything. And it applies to you also. If you are a Christian or a Muslim, you should also read all the books and gather information and take the positives. If you do not understand, go to a scholar who is actually a very experienced and well-read person and ask him what is the meaning of this. You should not go and ask these terrorist organization heads who even haven't read these holy books themselves.
But they have
So
their own version of it.
yeah, obviously. So they have their own interpretation and version of it. So they are teaching completely wrong and baseless principles of a religion, which should be condemned and which should be stopped. And coming back to your question, yeah, based on this, now we can understand that where are these people getting the arms and ammunitions. First, we need to understand giving the arms and ammunitions to these people, who will be benefited. If I give anything to you, why will I give you? Either you are in a need, or I am in a need to give you, or if I get something out of it to give you. Either of these two, right? So if these people are given these arms and ammunitions, they haven't asked for it. They are not in need of arms and ammunitions. Any normal person, why will he need a gun? He will never need a gun. So he is not in a need of these. And second, so this point is not correct. Now the second thing is, the people who are actually giving arms and ammunitions to these people, actually they are in need and they want to give these to them. That is actually actual fact, how I see. So obviously all these terrorist organizations are located in Pakistan or Pak occupied Kashmir. Most of them are still active. They are getting the funds from different sources, and they are providing the arms and ammunitions and all the funds to these terrorists, and they are making them to go and attack the Indian army. This is the storyline of what is happening since decades.
So, uh, so one thing, uh, are these terrorists trained? Obviously, they are trained, but still, I want to ask you this. I want to have clarity on this. Are they really trained, or who trained them to do all these such kind of activities across the borderline?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. It we have already discussed about it, but let me give you some more points. These terrorists are trained.
See, I have one small clause on it. See, for all Indian Army, they are trained. There are some particular places where they get trained to carry all the military operations officially. It's a big setup, you need a lot of forces or a lot of equipment to train the military for a good cause for our country. Who do supreme sacrifices for a country. But where these get trained actually, or who train them?
Yeah.
Because I
So
can't say, I don't think there be some institutions or any crash courses to get trained in all this kind of activities.
Exactly. See, let me ask you a simple question. If you want to, so if, for example, if you are going to an exam, and if you are not trained, or if you have not gone to a class, or if you have not studied, suppose there is a maths exam, and if you haven't even touched the book, and if you haven't even gone to any class, would you able to execute, or if you would you able to even sit and understand the questions? Forget about writing. You will never able to execute, or you will never able to even attempt the question, right? So the same rule applies here. If I buy you a gun, okay, and if you haven't gone to, if you don't know how to use it, how would you fire a gun? It looks like a toy, but it's not a toy. You need to have some knowledge about it. You need to have some experience. You need to have some training about, how to fire a gun with accuracy, and there are a lot of dynamics related to it. So suddenly a maths teacher goes to a shop, buys a gun, and in no time he will be a pro and shooting with ultimate precision and accuracy without training and coaching. So I want to ask people to answer this question. I will not answer. Just think about it and ask yourself. Can you do that? Can you just go and write an exam without even knowing what exam it is, and without even getting trained on anything? So basically, the answer to this question itself says that they are actually trained. And this organization, what do you mean by organization? What it does? It has to have some people who will train these people, who will brainwash these people, so that they can execute what these people want out of these people, right? They can't come and fight because they are already covered. They don't have guts to face our army. So what they do, they sit and they recruit these people, brainwash them, train these how to handle a gun, how to explode themselves using a suicide jacket, all these things. Whatever terrorist attack, whatever terrorist uh, incidents they do, all these things are actually well planned and trained, and then only they can be able to execute. As simple as that. So people need to understand they are not freedom fighters. They are trained somewhere. And who are they? They are actually sitting across the border, opened a shop, recruited them, and brainwashed them, trained them, given them the weapons, and they say, whatever you're doing in the name of Allah. Go and fight. It's your fight. Those people actually are so innocent. They're already motivated, and they're inspired with all the bad teachings of religion, and they can't even question them. Actually, that's why these people are not mature. If you see, they are very young, right from teenage level to early 20s. They're not even like mid 30s, or late 30s or 40s. So a person who is in late 30s or 40s cannot handle a gun. Why are those people are not coming and fighting? Why are only young people are coming? Why? Because young people are innocent. They can believe anything, whatever you say. You can easily manipulate them because they don't know much. So that is why we see a lot of young people being recruited as terrorists, and they become infiltrators, and they cross the border and they attack the civilians, and they violate uh, all the rules of the societies. And next thing is, uh, who is behind these organizations who give these trainings? These religious organization heads, they are also not trained with weapons. They are only trained with religion, bad teaching of religions, and their job is to just instigate and inject all the wrong principles of Islam or in some religion. Okay, but the weaponry, how to handle arms and ammunitions is not these people's job. Those things are actually done under the eyes of Pakistani military forces, Pakistan ISI, all the retired journals actually come and train these youngsters because they are the only people who know how to handle the weapons. So that is the root cause. Root cause. If I just sit here and teach you something, if you do not have a weapon, what will you do? All the maximum that you can do is you can carry the same teaching and you can try to instigate, or you can try to uh, preach others like I did to you. But if I teach you and also tell you to blow yourself and kill as many as civilians and armed forces you can, you need weapons, and those are really big heavy weapons. And not only carrying those weapons, you should also know how to execute, how to pull the trigger. All those things are not cakewalk. They're not a child's play. They need serious amount of training, and those are given by a military backed officials, Pakistani armed forces, who train these, who actually have a course. This is a fact. If you go and search in Google or any source or anyone who is aware about this is actually a fact, officially written fact. And officially I have researched about it, and I was very shocked to know that the Pakistani armed forces actually they have few officers who are allocated to do this job. Their job is to go and train these militants, train these terrorists. That's what they do. It is very shocking to know. They're not doing the actual job. They're not securing their borders, and they're not doing their actual primary military work. They actually allocate few officers, senior officers, to go and train these terrorists. That's what happened. So now you can see who are the root causes. Root causes, I would say the root causes are these leaders and the Pakistan Armed Force. That is why we need to neutralize them. Yeah.
Thanks for that. One more thing, Raghu. What are they against for? Or are Kashmiris not getting the freedom or rights they want, like every other citizen in India?
See, Jammu and Kashmir, including Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan, the whole Jammu and Kashmir region is an integral part of India, was, is, and always will be an integral part of India. Unfortunately, we have a line of control which cuts off Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan region. So the leftover region, the Kashmir, South Kashmir, North Kashmir, Jammu region, and Leh Ladakh region. So basically, Kashmir is not a, it, the whole region is very big, but the currently we have is 1/3 of Kashmir, more than a little bit more than 1/3 of Kashmir. Some part of it has been occupied by China. Some part of it has been occupied by Pakistan. The leftover part is ours. So everyone got their part. So now our Kashmir value right now, which is administered by Indian government, is not that big. Jammu and Kashmir and Leh and Ladakh, only these places. And this violence only happens in Kashmir Valley, not in Jammu, not in Leh and Ladakh. If you might be knowing, a lot of tourists actually go to Ladakh. They do the bike rides. They go and they actually do the mountaineering and all the hikes and trekking thing. Even today, a lot of people actually go and visit Leh and Ladakh mountains by bikes, by Royal Enfields, and you must be aware about all these. There are videos, tons of videos. There are a lot of people who go to Jammu. There are a lot of people who go to Srinagar also. So this violence or whatever is happening is only pertain to a small region of Kashmir Valley, which is which is not that big, which has like a few villages, not many villages, and that too, it is in south of Kashmir, not north of Kashmir. If you take Uri is in south of Kashmir. It's near to the border. Pulwama, Kupwara, Handwada, all these are villages in the same South Kashmir Valley. So the people here are actually close to the border and can easily be infiltrated to our border, to our South Kashmir region. So these are easy soft targets, easy people to influence and motivate for these terrorist organizations. So they motivate them and they leave them to do what they ask them to do, and these people will be paid for a very less amount. Like Naiku, when he got recruited, I think in one of the interviews he was saying that I was paid 2,000 or 3,000 rupees. If he was doing a teacher job, he would be earning a more amount than 2,000 or 3,000 rupees. The matter is not these rupees to them anymore. The matter is now they're so much instigated and influenced that now they're ready to give their life, not for the civilians or not for the Kashmir. They don't. They keep saying their agenda is to free Kashmir, make it independent Kashmir. We are fighting for its freedom. If you are fighting for its freedom, why don't you join politics? Why don't you go and stand in the court? Why don't you file a complaint of what brutalities, or if they are saying that they are not getting all the rights as a citizen, right? If I say that I'm not getting all the rights as a citizen, what will I do? Would I go and buy a AK-47 now? No, I will not do that. I will simply go and file a complaint, or find a respective official, or respective organization where I can actually plead whatever concerns I have. But these people will not do it. They want to uh, carry forward the violence in the name of freedom struggle of Kashmir. But it's actually not. If you ask any normal Kashmiri, they won't. They are not even related to anything of this. They won't even say that we are not getting all the rights. They are very happy. They are doing. Most of the Kashmiris are very simple and very caring and loving people. That is why it is number one tourist destination in our country. If people are not humble to you, why would tourists go there, right? People are very humble, very loving and charming, but because of these few people, the whole image of Kashmir Valley is actually getting affected. So people need to know that this is not a freedom struggle. They are enjoying all the rights a citizen enjoys. They are only doing in the name of freedom struggle, saying that we are not getting all the rights as a Kashmiri, but actually their main intention is to uh, uh, instigate, and their main intention is to spread violence in the Kashmir and disturb the Indian politics and the country.
Many say that Article 370 has been abrogated, but still we couldn't solve the issue of terrorism. What do you think about it, or what do you have to say?
Actually, this question has been in the news recently. Ever since Article 370 was in the news, a lot of people, mostly leftist and allied party people, they started protesting against it, and they were against it. The removal or abrogation of Article 370, the government did not do, saying that if we remove it, the terrorism will end. The day when we remove it, the next day onward, there will be no terrorism. The government never told like this. But these people are actually spreading the fake agenda or the fake logic behind this article to rest of the country. The actual reason of Article 370 is is completely different. Yes, it will solve the issue, but it's not a temporary fix. It is for the betterment of long-term fix of what was happening in the Kashmir. It's a very big and vast topic. I don't want to go into details. We can do another separate video exclusive for this discussion, Article 370 and 35A.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
my simple answer is this article was not abrogated saying that the terrorism will go from the next day onwards. Terrorism will be there until we change our defense policy, we integrate Kashmir to our country, and we own these people. We actually give Kashmiris what they have been lacking in the past. We provide them good government jobs. We provide them good universities, institutions. We
Education.
provide them infrastructure, sports. They are encouraged in sports. They are very, very talented people. If we do not bring them into this infrastructure that the rest of the country is enjoying or having, then we cannot we cannot say that we are owning this Kashmir or Kashmiri people. If you do not give them the infrastructure, then they will not give the love and respect that you want back.
Yeah.
So the first step to make this happen is abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. Because of very stringent and weird rules on these articles, the government was not able to invest a lot and not able to attract other institutions and investors into the valley of Kashmir. And now since this article has been abrogated, now the institutions will come, investors will come. There will be a lot of uh, jobs generated, government jobs, and central government jobs, state government jobs, defense jobs. There will be a lot of things that will be coming back to the Kashmir Valley, which will actually give people a lot of employment, and they will be busy. Once you are busy, and once you are
You want
into the mainstream of
time
things,
to all this kind of.
exactly, then you will not be needing to go back and do. You will not leave your nice golden opportunities or jobs that you will do. You will not leave all your family and go join these terrorist organizations. So that is the main motive behind the Article 370 and 35A. Yes, it has been abrogated, but it will take time, because you can't just once you abrogate this law, you can't just expect the investors and business and all these institutions to
For the
come and
night.
start building their big buildings and generate jobs. It will take time. It will definitely take time. Kashmir is the most beautiful place. Any company would like to go and invest their money in Kashmir, right? It is that beautiful. If you have the money, would you prefer? Would you not prefer going to Kashmir? Definitely, you will prefer to live in Kashmir. It is that beautiful, right? So it will take time. Government is will be doing it step by step. We have to give them at least 5 to 10 years, because until now we have given more than 70 years. So we have been patient for 70 years. So at least we should be patient for at least 10 to 15 years, I would say, to get all the infrastructures and make Kashmiris happy and provide them employment and all the benefits of the citizens. And ultimately, I think uh, government will be doing it. It is already heading in the right direction, and ultimately, we will be seeing peace in Kashmir. And I hope we all will be going for a nice trip in the Kashmir Valley with all our families and friends, and will be enjoying the true essence of Kashmir.
Yeah, very soon things are. The recent days, even I have gone through an article stating the literacy rate in Kashmir Valley has increased. No, there are some changes. No, there are some good changes in Kashmir Valley after the 270 article is updated. So I have then I'm going to few articles or few reports on daily basis. So let's hope very soon things will settle down. Yeah, Kashmir will be an integral part of India.
I hope we will get back Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan and make our state completely integral to the rest of the country. And hopefully one day we'll all visit Kashmir, and not only the South and North Kashmir Valley, we'll visit everything, all the places of Kashmir, and enjoy our time there. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.